Today we're going to look at domain and range, and these should be relatively familiar words to you. We've touched on them previously in Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, so we're just going to do a refresher here and maybe learn something new. So when you write domain and range, the first thing you want to make sure to do is remember which one is your domain and which one is your range. And one little clue I can give to you is that domain and range always follow alphabetical order. So D comes before R, I comes before O, and X comes before Y. So your X values are your input values, which are belong in your domain. Your Y values are the output values and belong in your range. So that way you can remember which variable matches with which set of data. When you write domain and range, they should always be written in numerical order. So let's go ahead and take a look at this example. So below I have some data sets that have been given to me. So here's a table, here's a graph with just points on it, and then here is a list of numbers. So we're going to go ahead and write the domain and the range of each of these data sets. So first I'm going to go through and I just have to identify for domain, those are all of my X values. And then for my range, those are going to be all my Y values. And I want to write them in numerical order. So I'm going to go through and find my smallest X value and write that one first. 2, 3, -1, 0, 5, and 2 are all my X values. So my smallest X value is actually -1. So I took care of that guy. And then 0, it looks like, is next. And then 2, and even though I've written 2 twice, or 2 is in my data set twice, I'm only going to write it once. There's no repetition when you do domain and range. So 2, the number 2 is in my domain, and then I just have 3 and 5 left. So 3 and then 5. So that is my domain. And these brackets at the end, I often refer to them as fancy brackets, just represent a set of numbers. So the set of numbers, -1, 0, 2, 3, and 5, are the domain of this data set. Now let's go ahead and we'll do our range. So our range, I'm going to look at the Y values and do the same thing, write them from least to greatest. So it looks like -4 is my smallest Y value, then -2, then 1 appears twice, but I'm only going to write it once, no repetition, and then 3. Oh, almost missed one, 7 right there. Voila. So that's the domain and range of that data set. And I'm going to do the same thing with the table and the graph as well. So down here, if I look at my domain down here, I just have to look at my X values. And these ones are kind of nice because they've been written in order for me. So I got -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. So I took care of my X values, my domain, and then my Y values. Go in my range, 5, 9, 13, 17, 21. Finally, looking at my graph, if you would like to, just because sometimes we miscount points, you can always go through first before you find your domain and range, and you can label each of your points. So like, for example, I know this is the point 6, -4. So then it's easier for me to identify my X and Y values. So let's go ahead and do that for this example. And then on the next one, we'll skip this step and see if we can do it without having to write out everything. -2, 3, -2, 1, and then -5, -3. All right, so my domain, I'm just going to go ahead and write all my X values in. So it looks like my farthest left X value is at -5 from that point. And then I have -2, 0, 4, and 6. And if you want to kind of know how I was able to do that part so quickly, is I just went left to right. So -5, -2, 0, 4, and 6. Okay. And so then now I can look at my Y values to do my range. So my lowest Y value looks like it's -4. Then I bump up to -3. 1 is on there in 2 separate points, but I only list it once. And then 3, and then 5. There you go. So there you go. That's how you find the domain and range of each of these sets. If you would like to go ahead and pause and try the next ones on your own, feel free to do that. So go ahead, pause here. And then now I'm just going to keep working through them. So I'm going to go through and let's see, my domain are all of my x values. So let me start with my smallest one, -1, 0, 2, 4, 7, and 9. Let's just double check. -1, 0, 2, 4, 7, 9. Very good. And then my range are going to be all my y values, starting with the smallest one, -8, -5, 0, 3, and 10. I like to just go through and cross them all off because then I make sure that I get them all. All right, there you go. There's your domain and range for that list of numbers. Let's see. Oh, it looks like my range actually popped down to the next page. That's fine. I'll just write it right here. So let's see. Domain for this one. Tables are my favorite because they're the easiest. Usually they're already in numerical order and they're just listed so nicely for you. Be careful for this range. You'll notice that 1 appears twice, and that's also not my smallest y value. So my smallest y value is actually 0, and then 1, and then 4, and then 9. No repetition when you write it. You shouldn't have the same number written twice ever. All right, and then this one I'm going to try to do it without writing the points next to it. So let's see, all of my x values are going to be -5, -3, -1, 1, and 3. And then my range are going to be my y values, so -3, -1, 1, 3, 5.